What's up guys, it's Bussian here. Today we are looking at the Amarr deck from the EVE 2nd Genesis Day of Darkness starter kit. So a little bit to know about these starter kits. They came out with the first set of EVE the 2nd Genesis, and they have a rulebook which I don't have in here, but they do come with a rulebook. They come with a bunch of ISK tokens for you to play with, and they come with 2 starter decks, one for each player. The Amarr and the Minmatar factions are included in the Day of Darkness starters. Let's look at the Amarr deck then. First and foremost, this is a really good value for a starter deck. You get a lot of replayability just by getting 3 star-based towers that you can use to construct your deck, and you get a lot of outer regions as well. So you've got 9 outer regions to choose from. Now the star bases all look the same on the front, so you can obviously use that for your advantage. Your opponent doesn't know what they will be playing against. The 3 options to go for: either the Empiric Tower, which does get a better defense, but you lose a little bit of income each turn. However, all attacking ships that have the patrol command gain plus X, where X is equal their patrol power plus X. The red means obviously their attack value. So you can actually make all your patrol ships hit a little bit harder, which is very good. A lot of our patrol ships have a fairly nice defense value to them, and just giving them some additional attacking power obviously allows you to close in the game later on when you've built up your empire. The second star base is the Reclamation Tower. You get a little bit more defense and you keep your steady income of 2 ISK per turn. And at the beginning of your management phase, if any player's star base shield is 20 or higher, every other player who controls at least 1 fewer regions than him or her loses the game. So this gives us an alternate win condition to go for. The development of this tower costs 15 ISK compared to the Empiric Tower's 8. I prefer sort of like the more nitty-gritty battle-y kind of playstyle, but if you want to go for a win like this, then obviously you are going to, ideally you want to get your star base shield up to 20 or higher to win the game. The third option we get for Amarr is the Holder Tower. Really high defense, but we completely sacrifice our income. And what this means for us is that we get this access to this effect. You may upgrade the star base at any time. You could play a news card, and it's very cheap to upgrade it. This, I would say, is probably more of a defensive kind of play where you really just want to get loads of money and you're content with what your units can do out of the box. This is probably my least preferred one. I built my deck around Empiric Tower. I say I built my deck, I didn't do any changes, but I've chosen the Empiric Tower as my star base location. In terms of the outer regions, a lot of the game is decided on not just the outer regions but also the locations you put in play. So we get a nice selection here. We got the Cloud Ring, which gives you plus 3 income a turn, costs you 2 ISK to play. Ships cannot activate commands in this region. Defending ships cannot withdraw from battle in this region. Attacking ships in this region get plus 1 attack value. It's nice, I like it. The second one, the Eve Gate, costs 6 ISK, doesn't give you any additional benefits, but it says ships cannot activate their commands in this region. At the beginning of your turn, set aside the top card of your market until the end of this game. When you have set aside 10 cards this way, you win the game. So another sort of alternate win condition card that you can play around, and realistically this would be very good paired up with Amarr, which gives us a high defense value for our tower, and we can kind of like just keep on defending ourselves until we reach the 10 cards out of play. But you really want to get this out ideally first turn. Next we have Ginning Gap, which costs 1 ISK. It does give us a steady income of plus 1 ISK a turn, and locations cannot leave this region or be played into it. For 1 ISK, put a location from any scrap heap into Ginning Gap. That little infinity symbol means that you can have any locations. These ones can have 0 locations to them. By the way, there's a 0 to them. In smaller can have 2. Kyono KP can have 4. So that's what those numbers represent on the top right corner. Getting a gap is really good if you want to have a lot of expansions and if you're happy to bring your locations back from the scrap heap. Works pretty well if you got some sacrifice outlet, particularly because you can't regularly play locations into it. You have to bring them all back from your scrap heap for getting a gap. In Smother costs 3. It gives us a 2 income per turn. And an opponent cannot attack this region if he or she controlled fewer regions than you at the beginning of his or her turn. Again, works really well with our holder tower strategy. I can also see working pretty well with Reclamation Tower, actually. Kyonoke Pit costs 3 and doesn't give you any extra income. All locations in this region get plus 3 mining potential, mining value, but all ships in this region get -1, -1. Super good to get extra income, not necessarily good for a region to be well defended though. Looking at Lone Track here, costs 5 ISK to play, gives us 3 income a turn. When you play a ship, you may pay its printed price again to have it to play docked and fully assembled. This is a fantastic one actually. It pays itself back in 2 turns, and also if you're generally speaking running fairly cheap ships, that you don't mind paying the cost again to know that you don't have to wait for turns to get them in play. It's fantastic. However, this deck, the Amarr deck, comes with many ships that only require like 1 assembly. We even have a couple that don't require any assembly whatsoever. So Lone Track is really good, not necessarily for this deck, but really good for decks that, you know, where you have like, you know, really hefty assembly waiting times on your ships. The 3 I chose to go with Empiric Tower. Metropolis costs 2, gives us 1 income, so it pays itself back in 2 turns. Enemy ships cannot warp into your home region. An opponent may pay you 4 ISK for each ship you control in this region and negate the effect of Metropolis until the end of the turn. I think this is a very good defensive card, and the matter of fact is that one of the easiest ways to win is of course your opponent to warp straight into your home region. Metropolis will obviously make that a lot more costly for them. The second one I went with is Stain. 3 costs 3, brings in 1 income. Your opponent cannot play regions. It's just a disgustingly good card. Stops them from any additional expansion. If you get that early out, then you can really shut the game down early. The third one is Damn Torcid, costs 5 and only gives us 1 income, but the effect is worth it. At the beginning of your turn, you may search your market for a location that you could legally play in this region and put it into play in this region. And the Damn Torcid can take 5 locations, so that's basically going to make it super easy to carry on getting the locations out of the deck and thin the deck very quick. And of course your locations are really what's going to make the deck. They are the ones that give you a lot of additional income on top of your outer regions. So this is sort of the starting package, and this is where we can really look at customizing this deck. As I said, it gives you a lot of replayability because you got 3 towers, you got 9 outer regions to choose from. It gives you a lot of options how you want to play with this deck. Maybe you want to try out some different strategies before you commit to a particular constructed deck. So just putting up here my considerations, but again you can go with anything. I just, you know, these cards really play into my play style particularly well. There you go, let's put that there because we do have a bit of a glare. So starting with the locations, this deck comes with 3 copies of Veldspar. this is a staple, I would say, in most decks because it doesn't cost you anything and it gives you one income each turn. You can only play one limited card each turn, but again, it's good value. It boosts your income and it doesn't cost you anything to play it, so it's immediately worth its play cost. Two copies of Pyrox series, where you get two mining potential, and we do have quite a lot of ships with mining keyword, so we do want to exploit that. And indeed, most of the locations will have mining ability, like Amarr, which does cost 2 to play, but immediately pays itself back the next turn because it gives you 2 income, and you can mine it for 1. When it comes into play, you unfortunately have to discard a card from your hand, and it's also a limited card, but again, it is a good location and it's worthwhile playing. We got Gneiss, costs nothing, and it gives us 2 income, 2 mining, but we can only play this into an outer region. It's not really going to be a problem. This is almost perfect to be played into Dam Torsad for, from out of the deck and just put it out there. Even better than Veldspar, I'm going to say, in this particular setup. We got one copy of Crokites, which again doesn't cost anything. It's very good for their 3 mining value. Can only go to an outer region. Again, perfect for Dam Torsad, and you can sacrifice this to deal 3 damage to target ship in this region. So if Dam Torsad comes under attack, Crokite can give you additional defense. We've got one Eyesore, costs 2, brings in 1 ISK, and you can mine it up to 4. Only can go in and out the region. All ships in this region get -1 defense, and Eyesore can be mined by 2 ships at a time, so we're gonna mine the hell out of this Eyesore. And finally, we've got 2 Slave Mines. Brings in +1 ISK, can mine it for 1. Only in an outer region. Ships that are mining this region get mining +1. Brilliant. Discard Slave Mines and pay 1 ISK, draw a card. Plays ability only if Slave Mines is in your hand. So it's kind of like recycling if you've played Magic the Gathering. I like Slave Mines quite a lot. This is the location pool that we get with the Amarr deck, and I think, a lot of them just play right into the hand of Dam Torsad, hence why my choice around that particular outer region. In terms of starbase structures, we only get 4 for the Amarr deck. We get Juggernaut Platform, costs 2, gives us +6 defense. At the beginning of your turn, return this card to its owner's hand. It works particularly well with the Reclamation Tower deck, but there really isn't much that I wouldn't want to cut from this deck. It's not even up at the full normal deck constructed deck size, so I will definitely not take anything out. We got one Moon Harvester, +1 defense for our tower. At the end of each opponent's turn, if your starbase was not dealt damage this turn, you gain 2 ISK. We got Warp Disruption Field, +2 defense. Enemy ships cannot warp into your home region unless their controller pays 2 for each ship. Works really well with Metropolis. Make this even more expensive for our opponent to come into our home region. And we have an Observatory. It doesn't give you any additional bonus. However, it does give patrolling ships in our home region a +1/+1. So it's really good defensively still. Alright, let's move on to the ships, kind of like what makes the deck move about. So first of all, and again we're going in, we're not going in cost order, I think actually we're going in kind of assembly order here. We get 2 copies of Emperor. It's a very small ship. It doesn't require any assembly time though, and I really like it for that. It's a 0/1, it's just a tiny little fly, but it does have mining 1 and patrol 1, so it's going to serve us really well, especially for us to be able to give our patrolling ships +X power, where X equals the patrol power. Patrol power, this is immediately going to be a 1/1, but then again we can use it for mining, so we've got that multifunctionality. We got 2 copies of Punisher. Requires assembly 1. It's a 5-cost 3/5 ship. Cannot be targeted by more than 1 ship during each target step, and it again has patrol 1. 2 copies of Tormentor for a cost of 405. Again, only one assembly. Tormentor cannot be targeted by more than one ship during a target step, and it has mining 2, which means that it is going to give us 2 ISK for every mining on target location. Really, really fantastic card. Just show you an example there. We would love to see this mining Pyroxeres, because that will give us 4 ISK each turn for mining that particular location. 2 copies of the Executioner, a very cheap unit, 2 ISK. It's a 2/2, only one assembly, and it's got Patrol 1, exactly what we want to see in this deck. Becomes a very cheap but very powerful deck as well. 2 copies of Inquisitor. It is a 4-cost 3/3 unit with Retaliate 2 and Patrol 1. We've got 2 copies of Crucifier, and Crucifier has again an assembly of 1/3, costs 2/2. It's got Sensor Dampen 2 and Patrol 1. Sensor Dampen means at the beginning of a target step, you may choose an enemy ship in this region. Because it's Sensor Dampen 2, it gets -2 this battle phase. We've got 1 copy of Omen. It's an expensive ship, and it does require 2 assemblies, but it's an absolute beast with its 6/6. It's got Sensor Dampen 3 and Patrol 2, so we're still following that very obvious path that this deck is going after. We've got Guardian. 6 cost 1/6, 2 assembly required to 2 turns until it's ready to blast off. You can pay 0, and the next 1 damage that will be dealt to target friendly ship is dealt to Guardian instead, as long as they are in the same region, and all other damage dealt to Guardian by ships is prevented. So it doesn't take any damage from normal attacks, but it can soak up damage from other ships. Fantastic unit, especially for the little guys, for like the Emperor or the Executioner, to kind of soak up the damage, even Crucifier. And we have Coercer, 6 cost 4/5 unit, with the effect all enemy scouts and frigates in this region get -1 power. Now we do have some shape or form in Sensor Dampen in Crucifier and Omen, but this is also a welcome addition to ultimately weakening our opponent's forces. So these are the ships, really well-rounded ships actually. They work really well with the rest of the deck and gives us a lot of mining ability, it gives us a lot of patrol ability, exactly what we want to see. Finally, we've got our news. So we got 2 copies of Stubborn Mechanic, which has a duration of 4. So for 4 turns, target ship gets +2 defense value, only for a 1 cost. That's a really good investment. We got 2 copies of Disarmament Treaty. For a cost of 1, we can only play it at the beginning of a withdrawal step. Each player must withdraw at least 1 ship from this region during this withdrawal step if able. We got 2 copies of By the Emperor's Decree, 2 cost news. Reveal cards from the top of your market until you reveal a location card. Put a location into play and shuffle the revealed cards back into your market. If the location has no legal targets or could not be played into any of the regions in play, place it in your scrap heap instead. Just a really brilliant way again to bring out additional locations, and I think it complements Demtor set really well. We get 2 copies of Exiled from the Empire. It is a little bit more of a costly news for 5, but it just straight up destroys target card that is being played. It's a solid counter, destroys any target card that is being played. And then for the one-offs, we have 1 copy of Hired Enforcers with 3 duration. For 4 cost, target ship gets +2/+4 until the end of the turn that Hired Forces comes into play. And because it does stay in play longer, we can still use its second effect. Discard a card and pay 2 ISK. Return Hired Enforcers back into your hand. Play this ability only if Hired Enforcers are in your scrap heap. So the duration, of course, is a hindrance to this card. You can only use it every 4th turn. 1 copy of Mind Clash. 4 cost, duration of 3. Target star-based structure loses its abilities. When Mind Clash leaves play, draw a card. And we have 1 copy of Forsaken Ruins, 3 duration, 3 cost news, play only during your management phase. All ships in target outer region must withdraw. Ships cannot warp into that region. It's a very good fuck you, you ain't going to go there. I'm not going to let you go there. And that's really good again to protect one of our outer regions from siege, or indeed we can use it against one of our opponents' outer regions as well. And this is it, ladies and gents. This is the Amarr deck with the potential modifications that you can do to it. I really think it's a well-rounded deck. Next time we are going to be looking at the Minmatar deck in a similar fashion. I hope you guys enjoyed this view into Eve, the second Genesis CCG, and I'll see you next time. Bussy and signing out. Peace.